Hey guys, I am here so I can hopefully answer your questions for Red Ribbon Week next week. So, who wants to start us off?
I can.
All right.
So my question is, if one out of every five kids at our school started doing drugs, what would our school look like?
Oh my gosh, it'd be a mess because drug use affects so many different things that right now, how everybody walks around, it's all pretty much everybody's happy and just kind of going through life. Grades would drop, attitudes would drop, the way people cared about each other because people care in this school, that would all change. It would be crazy. How about another question? Alexa, do you have a question?
What would it look like in the world if nobody were to do drugs?
Boy, I would hope that it'd be a much safer place because I know for a fact that I have dealt with a lot of people in my life that have used drugs and it affects people greatly. I know within our school, there's families that are definitely affected by it. Um, and I would love to see a drug free world where we didn't have things, the negative that the drugs bring with it. I would hope that it'd be a positive place. How about Patrick? Do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Um, so have you ever had like a friend that you've had, but like as a police officer, you've had to dealt with him or her from drugs?
I would say one of my best friends when I was 18. Um, we had to kind of go separate ways because he was making decisions that I didn't agree with, and it affected his life. Our lives went in two different directions. His kind of spiraled down, and he always had kind of problems with alcohol and drugs, and his marriage ended. He doesn't really have a relationship with his kids. He doesn't own a house. Um, him as a person, he was a good person. It just the alcohol and drugs really affected him in a negative way. So yes, I have had friends, and that's just one example. I've had a couple friends that have made bad choices. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. How about you, Lucas? You got any questions?
How much deaths occur from drugs per year?
How many deaths occur from drugs each year? I don't know the exact answer. I know from working in patrol with the police department, we run to overdoses daily. So that means that people are dying from drugs daily, and we're responding with basically an antidote to help save their lives. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So we have people dying daily within our small community, and it's a worldwide problem. So I don't have an exact number, but it's way too many. Anybody have any questions? Any other questions, or do you want to kind of hear where I come from as far as my stance?
What's one way we can try to all avoid drugs?
Well, unfortunately, there is going to be times when you're going to be tested, and just having good friendships and making good choices for each other, because sometimes we don't make the best choices and our friends can help us make better choices. So having a good friend basis helps with making the right choice. And if you know that you're going to be in a situation that's not good for you, you might want to just try to get yourself out of that, because that's one, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is you get yourself in a situation where it's hard to say no, and you know in your heart you probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. Anybody else?
What is one good way to say no?
Well, no is always a good way. Um, sometimes just making up an excuse that you can't. Like, say you're somewhere and your friends want you to do something, and you just say, you know what, I can't do that because my parents are going to pick me up later and they're going to know that I've done something. Um, that would be one way. Um, let me ask you, how do you think you could get yourself out of a situation like that? Do you know?
Any excuse that would work?
Any excuse, right? Here's what I try to tell people. If you're around, say there's 6 of you standing around and somebody brings marijuana and they say, hey, let's smoke this marijuana, and you don't want to. If you say no, there's a good chance that your friends are also going to say no because you're going to stand together. It's hard to be the person that says no sometimes, but if you say no, you're going to find that there's more than just you that feels that way. And it might be all 5 of you minus that one person has the same thought, but you know nobody wants to stand up and say no. So let me tell you guys something, because when I worked in the patrol side of police work, I was one of our drug impaired drivers. I would go out and find alcohol or drug impaired drivers because I thought that was a huge thing. The impaired driver doesn't just affect themselves. Do you know that? They affect all of us. They affect you guys. They affect me. And if we can get people to stop and think about what they're doing, hopefully we can save more lives, because unfortunately I've seen a lot of deaths from people who've gotten into cars with somebody who's impaired. And sometimes kids, even though you're not doing something, parents make bad choices. So if I can help you guys make better choices, maybe in the future we can stop that altogether. Does that make sense? No, but I've seen way too many avoidable deaths. Patrick, I'm seeing you all over the place. uh, any other questions?
For virtual students, what's one way they can notice it? Like, what's one way to notice when someone's doing drugs?
I don't.
So,
Can I say?
yes, go ahead.
I don't think. Like, I think you might be like okay if someone's doing drugs, like behind a computer screen, because it can't really affect you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I phrased that question wrong.
No, you're trying to decide how to tell if somebody has been using a drug, like a friend or somebody. So, do you guys know what an intoxicated person looks like? Sometimes an intoxicated person will stumble, they'll fall, their speech is slurred, they drop things. Um, there's all sorts of different ways. If you know somebody and you know what their normal is and they're not acting normal, that's pretty much the best way. But if you see somebody who's impaired and once you've seen it, you know what it's like. Heroin, people who use heroin are generally very sleepy and they like will fall asleep while they're talking to you. Intoxicated people sometimes can't speak right, they can't walk right. Um, Other times people are like really fidgety, more so than normal. So there's a lot of different ways to tell. And it kind of comes with experience as far as watching those things. All right. So what I would like to get out of this, and hopefully you guys do get this, is it's not always easy to say no. And quite honestly, that's something that's going to follow you through life. You know, we always try to teach you guys as teenagers, hey, you need to say no, and this is how you need to do it. It continues through life. So if you can learn now those techniques of how to tell people no and come up with good excuses like you were thinking earlier, because having a plan is the best way. So Alexa, you were asking earlier, what should I say? Well, why don't you think about what would be the best thing if I'm found in this situation, what can I say to get myself out of it? Say you're spending the night at somebody's house and all of a sudden they're doing something that you don't necessarily want to do. Can you say, you know what, I'm not feeling real good. I'm going to have my parents pick me up. Would that be something? Or have a plan where talk to your parents and say, hey, if I'm ever in this situation and I text you to come get me, will you call and just say, hey, I need you to come home? No questions asked. Because having a plan with your parents is a great idea, because they're there to keep you safe. And if you say, mom, dad, if I text you this, I just need you to come get me. And they're gonna like it. It's gonna help you. And it's having a plan is always a great idea. All right. I think we're probably about at that 7-minute mark. So I'm going to thank you guys for your time, and hopefully you guys get something out of this. And I'm always here for questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.